Imagine waking up every single morning, loading your rifle, and heading out to fight a war. Not knowing. Not suspecting. Completely certain that the enemy is still out there. Now imagine doing that for 29 years. This is not fiction. This happened. And the man who lived it is one of the most extraordinary human beings who ever walked this earth. His name was Hiroo Onoda. In 1944, he was a young lieutenant in the Imperial Japanese Army, sharp, disciplined, and deeply loyal. He was sent to a small island in the Philippines called Lubang, with one mission and one order from his commanding officer. You are never to surrender. You will continue fighting until I personally give you the order to stop. Onoda nodded. He understood. He would carry that order like a religion. 1 year later, on August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered. World War II was over. The bloodiest war in human history had finally ended. But nobody told Hiroo Onoda. Or rather, they tried. And he simply didn't believe them. Deep in the jungles of Lubang Island, Onoda and a small group of soldiers heard the radio broadcasts announcing Japan's defeat. They looked at each other and agreed it was Allied propaganda. A trick to get them to surrender. Leaflets were dropped from planes, printed with the news that the war was over. Onoda read them. And burned them as enemy deception. Search parties came. Former soldiers, sent specifically to find him, walked into those jungles calling his name. He watched them from the trees and assumed they were spies. One by one, his companions either surrendered, died in skirmishes, or were killed by Philippine police. By the 1960s, Onoda was completely alone. Just one man. One rifle. One unbreakable order. He lived off the land. He raided villages for food. He kept a meticulous diary. He maintained his uniform as best he could. He was not a man who had gone mad, he was a man who was, in his own mind, doing exactly what a soldier was supposed to do. The outside world had moved on. Japan had rebuilt itself into an economic powerhouse. Men had walked on the moon. And Hiroo Onoda was still fighting. In 1974, a young Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki decided to do something almost no one had tried. He walked into the jungle of Lubang, not as part of a military operation, but simply to find the man. And he did. The two men sat together in the jungle. Suzuki told Onoda the truth. That Japan had lost the war nearly 30 years ago. That life had moved on. That the world he was fighting for no longer existed. Onoda listened. Quietly. And then he said something that broke Suzuki's heart. I cannot stop. Not until my commanding officer gives me the order. Suzuki returned to Japan and reported what he had found. The Japanese government tracked down Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, now a retired old man, working in a bookshop. They flew him to the Philippines. He put on his old uniform. He walked into the jungle. And he looked Onoda in the eyes and said, "It's over. The war has ended. You are relieved of your duty." On March 9, 1974, Hiroo Onoda walked out of the jungle. He was 52 years old. His uniform was worn but neat. His rifle was clean and fully operational. He had fought for 10,000 days, for a war that ended before most of the people watching this video were even born. He handed over his sword. He wept. The Philippine president pardoned him. Japan welcomed him home as a symbol of loyalty so complete, it had consumed an entire life. Onoda spent his later years running camps to teach young people survival and discipline. He lived to 91. He never apologized for what he did. Because in his mind, he had simply followed his orders. And maybe that's what haunts you most about this story. He wasn't broken. He wasn't crazy. He was just loyal. To a world that had already moved on without him. If this story moved you, share it. Because some stories deserve to be remembered.
Subscribe Info Beyond Borders now for more mind-blowing knowledge.